it's time to spill some tea, I guess. Hello everyone, my name is Lindsay and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my least favorite books of 2018. I used to hate the idea of these videos because I have not always liked talking about my unpopular opinions. I haven't always liked talking about books that I didn't like, but now they're just kind of fun to make. It's fun to be a little controversial every now and then, and it's fun to talk about my least favorite books of any given year. So today we're going to be talking about the 6 books that I didn't love so much in 2018. Now keep in mind, these are not books that necessarily came out in 2018, though some of them are. And these are books that, while they may not be bad books, they just weren't for me. They were either really disappointing or I just didn't like them. It's all subjective. As I said, I have 6 books to talk about in this video, which is pretty good considering that I read 93 books in total in 2018. I only have 6 books that I didn't love so much, so that's a pretty good ratio in my opinion. If I have any reviews for any of the books that I'm going to talk about, I will of course leave them linked down in the description. I'm going to start with my least worst and work up to my most worst, or my least favorite book of the year. So let's get started. Number 6 on my list is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. This is the bridge novella that takes place between the end of A Court of Wings and Ruin and the beginning of the new trilogy that she's going to be writing. And when I initially finished this book, I actually really enjoyed it. I liked the addition that it made to the story and I was overall pleased with my reading experience. But when I finished it and I reflected on it a little bit, I realized that there's actually no point to this book. It basically chronicles the lives of the main characters over what is considered the Christmas season in this world, and I just decided I didn't care. I realized that there wasn't a whole lot to it. It was just a whole lot of nothing. It was like 250 pages of nothing, and I don't know that it's going to add a whole lot to the story. I mean, there were a few little nuggets of information that may be relevant in the future, but they were so few and far between that it didn't really feel necessary. So honestly, if you've read the A Court of Thorns and Roses series and you're wondering whether you need to pick this book up, I'd say it's probably not necessary. Number 5 is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. This is a modern classic that so many people love, and I didn't. I was so interested in reading this book because it gets a lot of praise in general for just being a book of literary merit, and I didn't like it so much that I honestly don't even remember what it was about. I don't remember the main character's name. I don't remember really anything about the story except for the fact that there are 2 instances of animal cruelty in this book that made it very difficult to read. So for me, unfortunately, this is maybe not so much a bad book because obviously there are a lot of people that love it, but it was just a really disappointing book and it was hard for me to read, and I just ended up just not really connecting with the story. So that's why it's made my list. Number 4 on my list is Wink Poppy Midnight by April Genevieve Tuholke. I think that's how you say her last name. This is a book I read earlier this year, obviously, and I really wanted to enjoy it because the book has a stunning cover and the synopsis of it is kind of mysterious and cryptic and makes you think that there's going to be something very interesting going on. But honestly, nothing happened in this book. I can't even really tell you what it's about because nothing happened. It's basically about these 3 characters named Wink, Poppy, and Midnight and their relationship with each other and how kind of messed up each of the characters is. And beyond that, I can't really tell you anything about this book because nothing happened. I listened to the audiobook, which was fine, but the book overall just was a little bit of a letdown. It was unfortunately it just was nothing, honestly, and that's unfortunate. Coming in at number 3 is Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart. This is a book I so desperately wanted to enjoy because I loved We Were Liars when I read it a few years ago, but this was such a major disappointment. It's hard to describe what this book is about without giving away the entire plot of the story, but basically it's a murder mystery, but the story is told in reverse. And while that sounds like a super interesting premise, the execution of it was just so disappointing. I actually had to go back and watch my video review that I made for this book because I couldn't even remember what I didn't like about it because it's so forgettable, and I'm so disappointed by it considering how much I loved We Were Liars when I read it. So I don't know that I would recommend this. I just don't know that it's worth it. If you're gonna read an E. Lockhart book, then I would definitely recommend We Were Liars instead. Number 2 on my list is actually a collection of poetry, and it's a book that I just talked about in my December wrap up, and that was Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. At the time that I filmed that video, I thought this was my least favorite book of the year, but then I remembered another book I read earlier in the year that is definitely my least favorite of the year. But this was just so bleh. It was so nothing. I was just so unimpressed by it. I don't care for the modern poetry, and I don't think there's anything super special about this book. I'm sure there are some really good gems of modern poetry out there in the world, and while this may have kickstarted the trend of this like internet poetry thing. I don't think it's anything super special. I wasn't impressed by it and I would not recommend it. And finally, my least favorite book of 2018, the worst book that I read all year, just super disappointing, just honestly all around awful, was Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding. This is a book that I so wanted to enjoy. I so wanted to like it because it's a book that's kind of hyped considering it has a pretty popular movie adaptation and so many people love it, and I've just always heard endless good things about it, and I hated it. I honestly hated it. This is a novel told in diary entries about a woman living in London named Bridget Jones, and she is struggling with her body and her love life and her job and just all kinds of problems, and I just didn't like it. I thought Bridget was a terrible character. I thought that she had the worst taste in men. This is supposed to be like a modern Pride and Prejudice retelling, but I thought there was no real basis for the relationship between Bridget and the Darcy character in the story. I didn't like it. I thought it was terrible. Honestly, I really thought it was terrible, and I definitely won't be reading the sequel. I probably won't ever watch the movie. I just did not like this story at all, and for those reasons it is my least favorite book of 2018, one of my least favorite books of all time. So those are my least favorite books of 2018. It was a pretty good reading year overall. I just had a few thrown in there that I didn't enjoy, and there are other books that I was disappointed by, and there were obviously books that I DNF'd, but I didn't want this video to be super long and super negative. I just wanted to focus on some of the books that really let me down in 2018, and so that's why I stuck to the 6 I talked about. I am sorry if one of these books is your favorite book. I'm not trying to attack you. I hope we can still be friends, but that is what it is. I have opinions and those are them. Let me know down in the comments if you have read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, and if you agree or disagree with my opinions, especially if you disagree, because I'd love to know what some of the redeeming qualities of some of these books are to you. Also, let me know some books that you really didn't enjoy in 2018, or maybe your least favorite book that you read in 2018. I'd really love to know that as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.